Alright, mateys. It's time to go live. Let's make sure that that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. Pause and repause. I have to do that because otherwise the audio and video can come on and then it distracts me because it's off to the side. I've got everything docketed. Don't worry. We've got all sorts of crazy news today. It's a little bit of a slow news day in some ways, but some of these stories are like primo shit. We have the mother of the person that was killed by that illegal immigrant that's now in El Salvador. We have her response to the Supreme Court, to, what's his name? Van Hollen and others. Absolutely crucifying the Democratic Party, by the way, in the process. And I think that's probably the main news of the day. There's probably a reason for that. It's literally a political crucifixion, and I don't blame her in any way, shape, or form. Harvard under fire as DHS secretary cuts $2.7 million in grants and demands visa records. Yes, they're going after Harvard really hard, and that is a good thing, in my opinion, personally. Rubio. It's Rubio! Little Marco. He's not so little anymore. He's closing a State Department function there that's DEI related and things like that. Saving a bunch of money in the process, by the way. Liking the Trump administration so far. While I wouldn't give it an A+, I would definitely say it's better than the first administration was. And like light years better than Biden or Bush-Obama or something like that. Florida Senate passes bill to ban psychedelic mushroom spores, even though the spores themselves are not actually psychedelic. We're going to be getting into the drug war, trust me, because I'm no fan of it. Now, this is one thing on which I can't really side with people that tend towards the right wing of politics on, because having used a lot of these substances, never any hard drugs or anything like that, but I've used psychedelics, I don't agree with banning them. It's unenforceable, it's wrong, it makes no sense, and also psilocybin is also correlated with potential health benefits, actually. Disclaimer, I'm not a physician. And then we've got to talk about Robert Reich, Robert Third Reich, and his latest and greatest crazy article on The Guardian. Finally, the Trump regime has met its match. I think you'll see differently fairly soon, Mr. Robert. Sassmaster, what are Dems thinking with going all in on the Abrego Garcia deportation? Yeah, we're going to have to get into that. I have no idea what they're trying to do at the moment politically. It's sort of like the 90-10 issue thing. It's become a meme. It's sort of like with transgender rights or something like that. Okay, you're going to jettison half of the female vote in favor of a very small handful of people that will be dedicated voters. That makes no sense. It's like when they say that Stephen Smith should be their candidate. Basically, why don't you just start handing out watermelon and fried chicken and grape drink at your rallies and shit like that? These NIMBYists have absolutely no clue what they're fucking doing. At this point, I don't know. Here, again, the Democrats are acting more like Republicans, and at least the MAGA Republicans have some degree of sanity. This is something that I never thought would happen within my lifetime, being a millennial. I remember when the Republicans were the party of Jesus war. That was basically it. That was the slogan. Jesus wants us to go to war with these individuals. That was basically what happened. Since then, the parties appear to have undergone a bit of a flip on several issues. Last beacon, again, if you're going to do the pingus thing, you've got to pay. You got to pay the troll toll. Jesus H. Christ. Yeah, Robert Reich he's completely insane. But again, left-wingers, generally speaking, appear to have gone insane, generally speaking. So, I don't know what's going on politically sometimes. Cooking Inferno. I was in Rutland last night to visit a friend. Would have introduced you to her, as I've tried in the past, but you never respond to my messages on X. Well, bump it to the top. That sounds fun. A friend. That's what I'm talking about. Luke Rope, that whiskey? No, it's water, actually. I've got Red Bull and water. Although I wish I had some tea at the moment. I should have brewed some. From Jam and Bean, of course. That's what I'm talking about. Road Scholar, you get the reference. You gotta pay the toll if you want to get inside that boy's hole. The whole joke was that it sounded like he was saying boy's hole as a saying instead of saying boy's soul. That was funny. That's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I believe, was the show. Boys. Jesus. Anyway, first we're going to get to something. This is not exactly a funny story or anything like that. I know we have a lot of levity on this channel. This one is just messed up. Senator Chris Van Hollen had already tried and failed to secure a meeting with Kilmar Abrego Garcia when the White House decided to make the controversy personal in searing detail. And trust me, it is searing. You should watch the video. Links in the description to all of these things, by the way. The Maryland Democrat, Maryland, I've heard it pronounced like 7 different ways, had vowed to the wife of Abrego Garcia, the migrant deported from Maryland into the Salvadoran prison without trial, to do everything possible to bring him home. His case is the latest lightning rod in the ongoing battle over the Trump administration's vow to deport the more than 20 million migrants in the United States illegally. Abrego Garcia is being held in a now notorious Salvadoran prison despite a court order, yes, SCOTUS stepped in, to halt his deportation. The Supreme Court called on the administration to facilitate his return. President Trump and Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele said last week they will not comply. I may be the first United States Senator to visit El Salvador on the issue, Van Hollen told a scrum of reporters surrounding him. But there will be more, and there will be more members of Congress coming. Now, here's the problem. Number one, the mother of the allegedly slain came out and crucified you politically. That was not a good look. There's a reason why it's gone viral. And she's calling out Van Hollen and a number of other people and the Supreme Court, of course. This is, by the way, to the liberals out there that hate watch this live stream. Do you think that it's helpful for the Supreme Court's mandate on this particular issue that this sort of thing is happening? Because I believe it is probably unhelpful. I don't think that it helps your cause. I can't understand what the Democrats are doing. A person is illegally in the country, so they can be deported anyway. For some odd reason, the Supreme Court decides they can't be deported. But now they're also in a foreign country, and this brings up an interesting conundrum. If a person is already physically in a foreign country, is the United States, and they're not a U.S. citizen, by the way, they're not a U.S. resident or anything like that, is the United States obligated to return them to the United States for some particular purpose? What part of the Constitution, or literally any law that you can think of, would be necessary to force facilitation of this? And if the foreign leader is unwilling and says, nope, I'm not sending them back, they're going to stay in prison. What are we supposed to do? Is Donald Trump supposed to go to war with El Salvador? Is that really what we want? Does this make any sense at all? I don't even understand this fucking case. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I don't understand the Supreme Court decision. I don't understand why a U.S. senator would travel there in order to try to facilitate his return. I don't understand any of it. None of it makes sense. But of course, no sense makes sense. What we've got is basically clown world mode with regards to this story. It's insane. It makes literally no sense. Yeah, give us back our criminals. Yeah, we demand the return of this criminal for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure why. Pre-59 Cuban, have you seen the Sandbox video on YouTube about American pirates versus China and legality of letters of marque? You can be a privateer. Yeah, I've actually thought about that. Let's get a couple of trawlers and armor them and put guns aboard. And then we'll go and we'll commandeer other vessels. That would be funny. BW, Sticks, did you hear that Hogg is primarying Democrats with their own money? Hilarious! They're tearing each other apart. Also, I heard China might be caving. Yeah, we've got lots of good news today. Unfortunately, we don't have good news with regards to the case with Miscellany. BW, but then China released a video saying that they make all the luxury bags. What do you think is going on? Well, I guess, unfortunately, your girlfriends will have to go without cheap designer bags. Oh my god, this is such a sin. Such terrible time. Absolutely horrendous. Dr. Claw. Oh, yeah, Inspector Gadget reference. Violation of the Logan Act. Big Trev, there's some misinformation going around. The fact that Israel was found to be the #1 poster on 4chan was pure coincidence. Aren't you sleepy? We should all just go to sleep. Yeah, no, I'm well aware of this. I am a noticer. Yeah, here's the thing. Like, people will think that they're buying something from Europe or, you know, Japan or something, but it was made in China and was repackaged, basically. Happens all the time. James Franklin gets it. I have no problem with people of Jewish origin. Most of them are very good, and their food is delicious, by the way. That being said, there are people that are in the rungs of power who happen to hold to that particular religious ideology, generally in the liberal sense, and are corrupt. This also happens among Islamic caliphs and so forth. It also happens in the clergy of the Catholic Church, among other things. VW Sticks, I don't have any girlfriends who care about designer bags. How dare you, sir? Avast, ye villain. Lol. I'm gonna watch The Goonies later. I'm a big fan of The Goonies. When you look at the way that I'm attired at the moment, you probably understand why. Anything piratical is great. B-list history. Suicide is wrong because it means prioritizing your own comfort above the pain it will cause those around you, and because you're robbing the world of what you could potentially contribute in the future. Agreed. Although I do like to joke about suicide sometimes. I have a bit of a warped, dark sense of humor. Come to clankers.net, unofficial fan site for Sticks. And of course, Anton is there, which means we need both right. As you can tell, again, I am a very sane, rational, mature individual. Even Anton doesn't understand how I do that. He says it's too salty. It is salty, but it's also delicious. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, Raymond Holgman. That's a dad joke. What's a pirate's favorite inert noble gas? Argon. Anton doesn't quite get it. I like a bit of saltiness. Molotulu. Oh my. I woke up early to watch Styx Hexenhammer 666. Yes, indeed. Yeah, but that takedown of Van Hollen, Jesus. The Democrats really waded into a trap on this one. Oh yeah, MS-13 gang member with several domestic violence charges that probably killed someone. You're forced to bring them back. And Trump says, what am I supposed to fucking do? He's in El Salvador. There's no way to bring him back without the consent of the Salvadoran government, actually. And so he's pretty much fucked. Harvard under fire as DHS secretary cuts $2.7 million in grants, demands visa records. America demands more. Christy Nome canceled 2 grant. I like how there's a typo here, by the way. Canceled of 2 grants for the university. I hate it when there are typos in news articles. It happens all the time. So yeah, DHS has decided to cut these grants. It's based on the student-led pro-Hamas movement there. Now, I will notice, again, we're noticers here, I will notice one glaring thing here. If these students were protesting against the government of Estonia, or against Russia, or something like that, they probably wouldn't be targeted for the reduction of their grants, now would they? It's only because Israel happens to be involved that this happens. So I am uncomfortable with this. I find it to be, it's a little bit odd. Well, I mean, it's not really odd for those of us that understand the world, but it's legally odd. That being said, anytime that Harvard has its funds reduced, I don't really have a problem with them, because they're just churning out disinformation anyway. People are being miseducated all the time. Didn't David Hogg go to fucking Harvard? I'm pretty sure that he went to Harvard as well. He's the vice chair of the DNC at the moment. This explains the intelligence of the current Democratic Party, by the way. So, I mean, again, while I do not have any problem with people who are Jewish, and I don't have any problem with Israelis in general, I do find it a little bit funny that only criticism of this one particular country results in this sort of thing. Like you could have a student group, a student union, organized on campus, getting grant funding, by the way, potentially by taxpayers. And it's the Anti-America Club. And everyone would say, well, it's free speech. Everything's okay. This one particular nation in all of the in all of the world, is unique in this capacity. Remember the USS Liberty, by the way. Sir Thomas Drake. I always thought of it would be funny if targeted advertising bots suggested rope from Home Depot on people's suicidal social media posts. Dark humor. Yeah, I thought it would be funny. Like if you really wanted to, making a Goonies reference here, I was chuckling like for 10 minutes last night. I had insomnia. And sometimes when I have insomnia, I get intrusive, dark thoughts. And I was thinking, how funny would it be if, like, I were to go to the top of the service center, it's the tallest building in Rutland, well, second tallest, and wrap a rope around my cock and balls and jump off while saying, hey, you guys, you know, the reference from the Goonies, and right when they're doing the farmer's market, and how hilarious that would be. And if you're going to go out, you might as well go out with style. To tell the truth, I'm not suicidal, I just have a dark sense of humor, so don't worry about that. Zeta, but how are underprivileged kids supposed to do their homework without ChatGPT? Yeah, people are becoming more and more reliant on AI, to the point where I'm thinking that at some point people might not be able to think for themselves. This might be the point. That's the problem. Joe, what's the best part of living in Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. Well, I mean, it's a really healthy culture. It's funny, they live forever even though they eat shit tons of butter. Supposedly, butter was the devil and was going to kill you, at least back in the 90s. Yeah, the Swiss have good food and really beautiful atmosphere, even though it's mainly a pile of mountainous gravel. Also, nobody ever attacks them because they're not crazy. Apparently, there was a quote. I think the Germans, I can't remember whether it was World War I or World War II, they came to them and they said, what will you do if we invade? And they said something to the effect of, shoot twice and then go home. Yeah. Axiom, did you hear about the iDubbbz content comp on Hee Hee with Hassan and other bread tubers? Everyone is hating it for good reasons. What are your thoughts? I don't know. I don't keep up with these people because they're irrelevant. Yeah, the Swiss are pretty hardcore. So the Swiss, the Finns, the Australians, the Vietnamese, and a few other groups of people, you just don't want to fuck with them because apparently it's impossible to defeat them. Thankfully, they tend to be generally Hegelian individuals that are not inclined to invade other countries. So yeah, we've got 2.7 million in grants removed from Harvard. I approve of this. I agree with this, by the way. And the reasoning behind it, I'm uncomfortable with. But anytime you can remove a grant of taxpayer money from a public university, I think you should take it. It's just that you need more reasons to do so. Rubio announces closure of State Department effort that was already supposed to be dead already. I am announcing the closure of the State Department's Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference, or RFIMI, formerly known as the Global Engagement Center, Rubio said in a statement issued on Wednesday. Under the previous administration, this office, which cost taxpayers more than $50 million per year, spent millions of dollars to actively silence and censor the voices of Americans they were supposed to be serving, Rubio asserted. He is fundamentally correct. Here's the problem. The war on misinformation was actually itself a form of misinformation the entire time. What happened was that the federal government, and we've got proof of this, we've got the Twitter files, Zuckerberg's testimony effectively before Joe Rogan. We've got Rubio as the Secretary of State. I would assume he has access to classified material, so he probably knows what he's talking about. You've got testimony from others as well, over and over again. Even people who seem like Zuckerberg, generally pro-censorship, that have no problem with the basic premise, have come out and said, look, the administration, the Biden administration, was openly forcing us effectively, or mafioso mode, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's your choice, but choices have consequences. That's basically the idea. Openly attempting to coerce them into censoring people's lawful opinions with regards to politics and so forth. So the idea is you will have maybe a bot farm in Russia, and it's spewing out literal misinformation on behalf of the Kremlin. But then you have some individual who is simply pro-Kremlin organically speaking. They happen to replicate that post or say something similar, they still get banned. That's basically what happened. So you have people that were not paid agents. These are not spy versus spy individuals. These are not, evil individuals in any way. They simply have their opinion. While you may consider their opinion wrong, their opinion is not unlawful. They're not saying, hey, I can't mention it on YouTube live stream, but they're not encouraging illegal behavior or anything like that. They're simply stating their opinion. You may consider their opinion wrong. Since when is the U.S. government enabled to decide which opinions are allowed and which aren't? I'm pretty sure that the First Amendment doesn't actually encourage that. Pretty sure it does the opposite. The idea is that people have the right to state their conscience. Now, what is on their conscience may be considered fundamentally wrong, but the government is not the determiner of that. They are the determiner of that. And so, again, another big win for the Trump administration. 50 million per year, by the way, it's a considerable savings. I have a feeling that Doge may have been involved in discovering this particular disbursement and informing Mr. Marco about it. The GEC closed in December, according to the archived State Department website content that is still viewable online. Rubio asserted in a piece published on the Federalist that the GEC had not actually ended, but was simply rebranded. They gave it a new name. So the GEC had to close. So what did they do? They said, well, if we change our name, the GEC is gone. It no longer exists. But now this other group happens to be doing exactly the same thing. This is exactly the sort of shit that the deep state will do. So hopefully Rubio can tamp down on all this nonsense because it's ridiculous. B-list history. I want humans to have just 5% more sexual dimorphism because it would be hilarious if all the pro-trans arguments were just 5% more ridiculous. Well, also, it would make females more feminine and males more masculine. That'd be kind of hot, you know? Sigil, have you seen the new Twitter bug? The moderation bot is freaking out and limiting visibility. Yes, I've seen this. On everything some accounts post, if you interact before the post, it flags, it spreads to your account. Yes, I have seen that. I've seen it complained about by the Rabies Awareness Gang and some of the members there. I'm a member of a dark legion called the Rabies Awareness Gang. Maybe I'll add a few of you to it. Copium. X is mass censoring small accounts, including us. No surprise. By limiting visibility on all posts. It's happening to a ton of accounts. X and Elon are not even acknowledging it's happening. I have a feeling that this is a glitch. I have a feeling that this is, they programmed something wrong. I could be wrong. That's my hope, though. I don't know if I'm limited, though. Let me check my reach. I mean, I'm visibility limited usually anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but... Yeah, I'm visibility limited. F-Winders Lodig. It's not a surprise. It's so funny the Free Palestine and Hamas are not terrorist crowd, are all leftoids. And the unlimited funds / don't criticize Israel crowd are neocons. Common sense doesn't exist on this issue, apparently. Yeah, my common sense is it's not my fight. It has nothing to do with me. I don't hate Jews. I don't hate Muslims. I don't hate anyone. I don't give a fucking shit. Leave me alone. That's all I'm asking. Go away. Dat Pie over there. Hey, Sticks, back from a break. Have you heard of the Kino Casino? I saw a clip of them saying that they're giving you an open invite to talk about Stolas. Yeah, I'm not going to go on their goddamn show. Why would I justify that? What would be the purpose? So that I can get ritualistically ridiculed for no reason by people who already apparently fucking hate me? I used to have no problem with Andy Warski. In fact, promoted him. All of a sudden he has a problem with me, and I think that's because for some reason his co-host began to have a problem with me. I don't exactly know why. I literally don't even fucking know. I don't know what his problem is with me. But I don't care. I don't have to care. Copium poppies. It's not a bug, it's a feature. If they got rid of their hateful conduct policy like Elon promised, i.e. free speech, this would not be happening. It's possible. Anyways, let's get to our sponsors really quickly before we talk about the drug war and the Trump regime and the Robert Reich article, which I found so goddamn hilarious. I mean, that'll be the comedy section, I suppose. We've got our sponsors. We have cultivated-mind.com. Use code STICKS, by the way, please, as a little bit of a referral. You can get a discount. Cultivated Mind creates mushroom pills, and they work wonders, trust me. I've used all 3 varieties, and apparently there are going to be dog treats available that have, I believe, reishi and chaga in them as well fairly soon. And I can't wait. I'm hoping to get a bag of those. I don't have any dogs, but I'm thinking maybe if I parse them up smaller, maybe the cats will eat them. That'd be hilarious. Hopefully it makes them a little bit more sedated or something like that, you know. You could always use that because our cats are insane. We've got BiltongUSA.com. Anton, who is over on Rumble, by the way, always, can hook you up with Wagyu. He can hook you up with Cabanassi, which is my favorite. Angus sticks and all sorts of things. Hiking food, just delicious protein. Just eat it anyway. You can also put it in soups, I've noticed. The shredded meats, especially the Wagyu, there's a peri-peri version, I believe now, goes really, really well in a soup. A noodly soup, you know, like ramen or something like that. We've also got Stick, Sex, and Hammer mugs, tumblers, and shirts available. And you can always get some Marmite, Bovrite, and Vegemite. I like all 3 of them. I think the Bovrite, the South African version, though, is my favorite, as you may have noticed. And then finally, we have jamandbean.com. That is JAMNbean.com, the official home of Clank Coffee, which smells delicious. You can also get various teas, and there's other coffees available, but I'm partial to the one that's the Clank blend, for obvious reasons. But yeah, they've got like, I don't know how many varieties of tea. It's like an infinite stock of tea. Tea for days. Tea for miles. Thousands of varieties of tea. So yeah, those are our Clank allies, our sponsors. They're funding our war effort. Goo Goo Gaga. Indefinite interring without charges or convictions is worrying. Yes, true. Agreed. But if a person is illegally in the country and is deported, in the case of Abrego, it's not my concern because they're not a U.S. citizen anyway. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if they've been convicted of any other crime. They can still be deported. Sigil, I'm leaning towards it. It's a bug because it's hitting far and wide, but it could be a new feature aimed at taking out entire engagement groups at once, like echo chamber busting, but retarded. I have a feeling that somebody put in a wrong line of code or something like that, and I'm hoping that other larger channels complain about it and they come to attention, basically. I should probably do that. I've actually got a pretty good Twitter following. How many followers do I have on Twitter? It's like 180,000. Yeah, 180,000 people, roughly. Almost 190. Copium poppies. The Peri Peri Wagyu is excellent. Yeah, I agree. I wasn't a fan of the plain Wagyu. I prefer the Angus. But the Peri Peri is excellent. The mild spice balances out well with the Wagyu flavor. Yeah, I agree. Although I've never disliked anything that Anton's selling, honestly. Nor have I disliked anything Jam and Bean sells. Nor have I disliked anything that Cultivated Mind sells. There's a reason why these are my sponsors. By the way, use code STICKS, I believe, on all three sites. There's a reason that I actually take them up as sponsors. I never promote anything that I don't use myself. And so if I can have a good cup of coffee, a pile of biltong, and then take a mushroom pill for some energy, hell, it's basically like being in heaven. Sigil, millions of teas, teas for me. Millions of teas, teas for free. Aksam knows best. Take those sunglasses off. Are you inside? What are you, blind? No, I'm photosensitive. And also, I just fucking look cool. When I take these off, I look more like a nerd. When I have the sunglasses on, I look a little bit like a gothy pirate. Vampire. F. Winters Lodig. Letitia James targeted for mortgage fraud by DOJ. Yeah, I talked about that the other day. For anyone that's not aware, Letitia James, the one that was going after Trump for, if I remember correctly, literally fraud, probably committed fraud. Mortgage fraud. It seems, allegedly, that she put her father in as her husband on mortgage forms. Well, that's a felony. Enjoy. World Life. Good morning, Clankers. All Sticks items are 50% off at websterswares.com/sticks-wares. We are sending extra items in every order while supplies last. Clank onward. Yes, I would like to talk to you, by the way, if you can DM me on Twitter. Because I do like your products. Cam2425IA is here, a regular clanker. It's funny, you develop an audience and there are certain people that are like regs, like they're regularly there, and so they end up with their own little internet personalities, so to speak. Hatiana, morning Sticks, sleeping better yet? If your blood is type O, it is. That could result in insomnia. Type O were hunter and gatherers. They were the first type to evolve. Cardio is the best way they vent stress, by the way. Yeah, I'm O negative. I'm the universal donor. So if any of you are ever in the area and you get injured and need a transfusion, you can always just take a pint of my blood, I suppose. Yeah, I can donate blood to anyone, apparently. Although there was an article, this was probably a year ago, where they were talking about 3 additional blood type factors that might actually impact the effect of transfusion. Not necessarily rejection, but that would impact it. Can't remember. I'll have to look back through my videos, I suppose. Linux Debian. What person says often reflects a broader consensus, whether small or large, true or false? True. Emperor Soft Turtle. Dems on all their podcasts and shows held up Garcia. After they warned themselves Trump would deport people, Trump wants this fight so he can reveal the people he deported were violent criminals. Yeah, the Democrats have wandered into a trap, definitely. Lucian Hacks, woe to you, you deserve a hug. I could use a hug all of the time. Now we're going to get to the drug war. Now this is something some of you may disagree with. I realize that my audience tends to lean to the right. Florida Senate passes bill to ban psychedelic mushroom spores as companion measure also advances in-house. This is 27-9 to approve SB 700 from Senator Keith Truenow. He's a Republican, of course. It's moving through the House, meanwhile having advanced out of the Commerce Committee on Tuesday. It's a proposed ban on certain spores that create psilocybin mushrooms. This is a big problem for multiple reasons. Let me explain. Number 1, the spores themselves are not a drug. The spores are spores. This is not the part of psilocybin that you use. You eat the mushroom, typically after the drying process. So the banning of spores really doesn't make sense because it's not a drug of any sort. It is a precursor. But then again, there are precursors to methamphetamine that are legal. There are precursors to LSD that are legal. For instance, if I decide to grow morning glory, Ipomoea tricolor, this is a drug. The seeds are a psychedelic. I'm allowed to grow them. I can grow a whole field full of them. Why is this any different from psilocybin spores? Hell, I can actually obtain the actual drug and process it off, extract it and so forth, and it's totally legal. Everything up until you actually ingest it. But I can't have spores for this particular kind of mushroom. By the way, there's another problem. In the state of Florida, psilocybin grows wild. Are you saying that if somebody has a patch of psilocybin growing in their backyard accidentally, that they're going to be arrested? Because the spores are there. They're on their property. Technically speaking, they're breaking the law. Nature has decided that they're a criminal, apparently. They are cursed. This law makes absolutely no sense. This is why I oppose the drug war in general. I do not believe that people should be peddling drugs to other people. But if they want to manufacture drugs, grow drugs, use drugs, etc., on their own property, on their own time, they're not being a public nuisance, they're not attacking anyone, they're not driving. I don't see the problem. How is it any different from people that drink? Drinking is legal. I mean, it's highly regulated for the most part, but drinking is legal. You can't get behind the wheel and drive. You can't go out in public completely wasted and stuff like that, although a lot of areas ignore it if you're only mildly tipsy. New Orleans is a great example, by the way. And you can create your own beer and stuff like that. And it's fairly easy to get a license to, make your own liquor if you really want to. And it's also something that is generally unenforced, by the way, in most states anyway, and unless it's a dry state. There are a few of those. But at the same time, it's legal, generally speaking. Why shouldn't the same apply to things like LSD or psilocybin? Some of these other, the soft drugs, as they call them. Why shouldn't you be able to use a handful of mushrooms? Like, half of the college population has tried that. I used psilocybin. Personally, I did not like it. I thought that it was kind of harsh. It's funny because I was reading the Erowid forums back in the day, and a lot of people thought that LSD was more difficult than psilocybin, and they talked about the come up and the come down and so forth. And I found that the opposite was the case for my experience. That is, that psilocybin was much more difficult than LSD. And I used 2 tabs at a time at one point. Honestly, it was a blissful experience. I had a fun time. I used LSD on 3 different occasions and wish that I had used it on many, many more, honestly. And I wish that I'd never bothered to use psilocybin. Because what happened is that I thought that I got a bag of cubensis. So, the bag should be roughly a dose, right? Unfortunately, it was azarescens. Azarescens has considerably more psilocin in it than cubensis. I thought I was taking a dose. I took about 4 doses as a result. I could have had like several fairly mild, wonderful trips, I'm sure, but unfortunately it kind of ruined it for me. I do not believe that psilocybin, LSD, and things like that should be illegal. In fact, I think that they should be completely legalized. It's just, like with alcohol or with other substances, don't get behind the wheel. Don't go out in public with it, just use it in your backyard. If you want to take mushrooms and stare at the clouds for the next 4 or 5 hours, I don't see the problem with this. I don't understand how it's harming anyone. As long as you're not currently you're taking care of kids or something like that, you're babysitting. Okay, that's a problem. Or you're driving, if you're using machinery. If you're not posing a threat to anyone around you or causing a situation in which you're effectively neglectful of the things that you need to be doing, if you're literally just on your off time, I don't care if you drop 10 doses of acid. Just don't be an ass about it, You run down the street thinking that you're on fire or something like that, Which has actually happened. But then that's usually with hard drugs, not with the soft ones. Let's see. Sigil, since you used to play RuneScape, see, they just released their first non-MMO into early access. It's open world survival crafting with up to 4 players. I'll be trying it later today. Yeah, I don't have the time to game, unfortunately. King of Biltong, try Carmian's range of red teas, infused with functional ingredients to help you through your day. Available on biltongusa.com. 10% off for Styx listeners only. Use code STYX. Oh, yes, Anton. Yes, I did get notification that you had sent a package. I won't let it sit out. Sigil, if mushrooms are illegal, then they can bust this dick. Copium poppies. Physical objects can be weaponized. Drugs are physical objects. Therefore, the drug war is illegal on Second Amendment grounds. You can't be a Second Amendment advocate and be in favor of the drug war. The two are mutually exclusive. That's a pretty interesting take. Kind of makes sense, actually. I just think, basically, don't be a dick when you're on drugs, Itkenriza sent $5. Wish I could be here for more stream, but it's 2 a.m. in Australia. Alk. David's Harp. Heard that if you get caught with LSD, you get charged with attempt to throw the government. I don't think that's actually true. MF Damien. You probably had a harsh strain. Golden teachers are like the best aspects of weed plus love. I don't know how else to describe it. 10 out of 10. Do recommend. Yeah, I don't use drugs anymore. I don't even smoke weed. Now let's get to Robert Reich. Oh, our old friend. Finally, the Trump regime has met its match, says Robert Reich, who is generally wrong on pretty much everything. You may have noticed this over time. China, Harvard, and the Supreme Court. Robert Reich is rambling. Link in the description if you really want to read it, though I don't recommend bothering. His idea is that these three entities are going to destroy the Trump regime. So, in other words, the Supreme Court is somehow going to command the commander-in-chief to wage war against El Salvador, I guess. That's premise number one. That China isn't blinking, which it currently is literally actively doing. So that one doesn't really make a lot of sense. And Harvard. Well, yeah, Harvard is going to take down the President of the United States. It just got $2.7 million in endowments removed, Robert. Just saying. Harvard is basically, they're at liberty to have student groups and shit like that to promote pro-Palestinian messaging. And I have no problem with this, by the way. I have no problem with Palestinians at all. Or even pro-Hamas messages. Maybe there's a student group that decides, hey, we're going to promote, an organization that has been designated, whether you agree with this or not, is legally meaningless, as a terrorist organization. That's fine. Should taxpayers be made to fund that student group if it is displaying that message? The answer is no. The same would be true if a student group were to come out and say, you know what, we really love Mossad. We're going to promote Mossad. Same litmus test should be applied. I don't give a fuck. If a student group wants to privately raise funds or get, private investment in order to promote any cause under the sun, I don't care if they're supporting goddamn Al-Qaeda. They should be allowed to do that because they have free expression. That's the whole point. Should taxpayers, though, be made to fund any sort of group under the sun? In my opinion, tax money shouldn't go to any student group. We should withdraw all of it. We can end this conversation immediately by simply getting rid of federal funding for the colleges and universities. Problem solved. Doesn't matter what message you spread. The states can take care of that. Under the 10th Amendment, they have that right anyway. They can take care of it. Perfectly fine by me. Reduce my tax quota at the same time that we're taking care of a major cultural issue? That sounds like a win-win to me. Just saying. Copium. I can go into a lot more detail in the Second Amendment argument, but don't have the money to do it via Super Chat. Lol. Also, DMT, not ayahuasca, but straight DMT, is the best psychedelic by far. I made ayahuasca once. I actually brewed it. But I made it... it was made right, according to specifications. The problem is it's called La Purga for a reason. If you can't keep it down long enough, you're not going to get significant effects. Mainly, it's used as a medicinal purge. The hallucinations are considered secondary by the native groups that use it. And so I got mild audio hallucinations. I heard weird clicking sounds and buzzing noises and weird shit, but I couldn't keep it down long enough to get any of the visual hallucinations. I'm actually kind of happy about that, because I think I would have freaked out. Considering I used salvia a bunch more times because it's a lot easier. Yeah. Disclaimer. I'm not encouraging anyone to use any of these substances. I'm simply saying I use them. I used Syrian rue once. I wasn't really impressed by that. I think I didn't potentiate it properly. But yeah, I did brew ayahuasca, I used shrooms, I used LSD. I used morning glory and salvia more than anything else. I was never a big weed smoker, honestly. Yeah, it was mostly morning glory and salvia. Salvia is much more potent, but much more short-lasting. Morning glory, though, one time I had a vivid experience. I ground up a bunch of morning glory seeds, and I put them in applesauce, and then I scarfed them down. You sort of have to either extract them or put them in something that makes them more palatable, because they don't really taste that good. And I can't remember how many seeds I used, but all of a sudden, I was out in the garden, and I was giggling my ass off looking at an anthill first, and then I looked off onto the side of the yard, and all of a sudden, pieces of grass began to pattern. It became like a patchwork of grass all through my vision, and I was like, what the hell is happening? Some people call it a dirty high, and they don't really like morning glory. They consider it harsh. I always considered it blissful. There's that story about morning glory heaven, actually, where kids will say, if you eat like a handful of morning glory seeds, you'll be in morning glory heaven or something like that. I consider it a very pure high. I often notice, and people have commented on various reasons why this might be, I've often noticed that my reaction to psychedelics was opposite the average interaction that people had. So with LSD, I found that blissful. Some people consider it to be difficult, especially the come down. I felt absolutely at ease. With shrooms, most people consider them more gentle. I considered them much more harsh. Now, part of that is the dosage. Morning glory is often considered a harsh high. I consider it very soft. Salvia is considered difficult. I consider it to be very fun. Or I did, anyway. I haven't used any of these substances in a very long time. And so on and so on forth. Marijuana, most people consider it highly entertaining. I'm like, take it or leave it, sort of. Copium poppies, same happened to me years ago twice. No effects at all, not even La Purga. Yeah, when I made ayahuasca, I made it right. It did have an effect. It's just I didn't keep it in long enough. I couldn't, it was too acrid. Tastes terrible. Bara, LSD was legal until 1968. True. Now let's get back to Robert Reich. His article here is so phantasmagorically biased. I mean, this shouldn't surprise anyone. That he's almost outdoing himself. They've dared China, Harvard, and the Supreme Court to blink. But guess what? They've met their match. None of them has blinked, and they won't. I disagree with you, Robert. You are 99% of the time completely wrong on your surmising, so I think probably on this one we will prevail. And guess what? They've met their matches. None of them has blinked, and they won't. China not only refused to back down when the Trump regime threatened it with huge tariffs, except until this afternoon, by the way, but also retaliated with huge tariffs of its own, plus a freeze on the export of rare earth elements that the U.S.'s high-tech and defense industries depend upon. If we change the land usage laws in our own country, we've got plenty of those rare earth minerals. That's the whole fucking point. Please, bear with me. Harvard also pointedly defied the regime, issuing a clear rebuke to its attempt to interfere with academic freedom. The freedom to use taxpayer money for political messaging is what you're arguing for. It has nothing to do with academic freedom. I don't give a shit what some college kid says. They can say whatever they want. I don't care if they Sieg Heil. I don't care if they praise Stalin. I don't care if they support ISIS. It means nothing to me. But my tax money doesn't need to go to facilitate that in an organized setting. The Supreme Court, in a rare unanimous decision, ordered Trump to facilitate the return of a legal U.S. resident, that is false by the way, wrongly deported to a dangerous prison in El Salvador without any criminal charges. Yeah, you've only got allegations of 5 or 6 different felonious conduct sort of things. Is not actually a legal resident, certainly not a U.S. citizen, and is currently in a foreign country, so it's going to be difficult to facilitate the return unless you attempt to coerce the El Salvadoran government to do so. Are we supposed to spend several million additional tax? He's asking for enormous amounts of money. We're supposed to spend an enormous amount of taxpayer money on appeasing the Chinese. Then we have to spend more money on Harvard to field student groups that have political views that are opposite the views of part of the population. Now, you may support them, that's perfectly fine. Maybe you're very pro-Palestine, that's okay. But it doesn't need to be tax funded, I would assume. And then we need to spend millions more to bribe the El Salvadoran government? This makes no sense. The whole article from top to bottom is nothing more than a wall of hyperbole. This is what we've gotten used to with Robert Reich, though. The midget. He has no idea what he's talking about. Isn't he like 4'10", by the way? Sigil, if my tax money is going to colleges, then I care what students say because you're up my dime, cocksucker. Shut the fuck up and go to class. Yeah, I mean, I don't care if students have opinions. I went to UVM, for example. It was leftist village, basically. And I was a liberal at the time, by the way, admittedly. I've talked about this before. I voted for Obama the first time around. Quickly regretted that decision, by the way. There's a reason why I voted for Trump several times. That being said, students have the right to say whatever the hell they want. I don't care. And you've got that sort of fraternity atmosphere in, universities where kids will stand around on soapboxes and do zany shit. Saw a couple of students, they had for some reason, they had requisitioned a shopping cart and they had put a mast on it with a sail. And I think that they were probably high. This is probably a good estimation of the situation. They put a sail on it, and one dude was shoving the other student down the road. And, the wind actually took it, and he was going down the road in a shopping cart ship. Kind of jealous, honestly. So, zany shit happens on college campuses. There's nothing to do about it, and it's perfectly fine. Back in the 1920s, before most everyone watching this video was alive, they used to have something called sitting that they would do. Flagpole sitting. They would climb to the tops of flagpoles, and they would challenge each other to see who could sit up there the longest. This was their form of humor at the time. Keep in mind that they already had AM radio. They found it funny. Every single generation is going to have zany shit that they do. I don't care what college kids have as opinions. It's perfectly fine. Any opinion that they have, they can say, hey, burn down the whole world. Okay. That's just like your opinion, man. It doesn't bother me in any way. You're not harming anyone. You're simply speaking your mind. That being said, we don't need to facilitate any specific opinion with taxpayer money. What would happen? Can you imagine the outrage from the liberals, for example? If there was a conservative group that was proliferating on college campuses, which won't happen for obvious reasons, and they were getting taxpayer funding, can you imagine how outraged they would be? They would consider it unconstitutional. Well, why is any other political proclivity, under any circumstances, going to be tax funded? That's the only thing that I ask. Sir Thomas Drake, hardest trip and most fun was from a heroic dosage of 2CI, an analogy similar to LSD and mescaline. Yeah, I used mescaline once too, and let me tell you, it was one of the best highs that I ever had. It felt like my whole body was being massaged. I could feel it all up and down my spine. It was better than any massage that I've ever had. Unfortunately, I didn't take quite enough high a dose, and so it only lasted for about a half an hour. By the way, please send no more super chats. We're running up on an hour here. King of Biltong, want to add more protein to your diet? Add some healthy high-protein biltong, packed with B12, creatine, iron, and zinc. A great addition to a healthy diet. Go to www.biltongusa.com, code STICKS for 10% off. By the way, I gotta eat some of that later. That's what I'm talking about. JDL, I am 6'2". I am very tall. Uh, Ms. Neflux, haven't churches had to deal with tax-exempt status for decades? They lose tax funding when they get political. We have separation of church and state. Why not separation of school from state? That's exactly what's being argued for, and I support it completely. The idea is that the states can handle the schooling system, get rid of the Department of Education, get rid of the public funding for colleges and universities, let them handle it themselves. There are plenty of rich people that'll give them endowments. And if they have to slim down, they can start with the sports stadium and all that bullshit. And they can go back to they can get rid of the filler courses. Crossover Maniac, Robert Reich is proof that you can only stack fecal matter so high. Yeah, eventually if it gets too tall it falls down and sort of turns into a mound. Yeah, I think he's like fucking 4'10" or something like that. I think he's pretty close to literally being a midget if I remember correctly. AK Sam knows best. 6'2", 130. Lol, that is like Brooke from One Piece. Well, I weigh more than 130 pounds. I weigh about, I think I'm at 150 or thereabouts. I mean, yeah, I'm a slim dude. I'm tall and skinny, and I'm glad for that. Yeah. Ketchup on biltong. I'm going to try this. I'll try it live on camera. I've got a few bags of biltong still in the freezer, by the way. You know, because Anton is very generous. I ate most of the other bags. They're gone. So, yeah, that could work. Maybe I'll take a hot dog bun, butter it and toast it. I'll put a couple of the Angus sticks on it, and then add ketchup and mustard and relish. Maybe goat cheese. Or mozzarella. Yeah, we're gonna do the biltong challenge. Sigil stone. Anytime I hear that's what I'm talking about, I always think of that bit from Djibouti Dub's Sticky Buddy video with the old lady. That's what I'm talking about. Wow, I think I know the song you're referring to, but I'm not 100% sure. Hmm. Copium, did you see that video sent of the Japanese dish with the live tiny fish? No, not yet. I'll have to look at it later. Sounds delicious, though. I've actually got, oh, this is a fun thing. I might as well go a little bit over an hour. That's actually a funny thing. I've got a friend who teaches in Japan. He's not Japanese, I believe, but he teaches in Japan. And sometimes I pay him to send me like interesting food. And I've got a food box actually on the way now. And I am extremely excited because I believe he was able to find the soup that he sent the first time years ago. The one with like, I can't really explain it. It's, there's a shrimp inside of it. Like an actual shrimp is embedded in the little block of soup. And somehow, I don't know how, the Japanese have discovered a method by which you can make instant soup as good as something you would get in a restaurant. And you don't even need to boil the goddamn water. You can just use a cup of hot water with this shit. It's delicious. So I'm extremely excited. I know I can't wait to see what he sends me, because some of it will obviously be like randomized stuff. I've got like, there's one that's like a ginger paste, I think, a mustard paste. I've got a whole bunch of instant soups, and they're all delicious, by the way, every single one of them. And then there was this box that had these like gelatinized cantaloupe in it, and all it was is it's the melon, but somehow they've turned it into gelatin and put it in little cups, and it's delicious. Japan is a very interesting place, and I can't wait to see it. I'm going to travel to Japan soon. Copium could be a good food challenge. Wouldn't be much of a challenge. I mean, I can't imagine that the biltong could ever taste bad anyway. And I always like ketchup, so. Sigil, it's not a song. Just watch this and you'll laugh your ass off. Okay, I'll copy that out. I'll pop that in. I can't watch it right now because I'll get a copyright strike, so. Yeah. I'll watch it later. Yeah, Japan is a very, very interesting country. I mean, you can get pizza slices in a vending machine. Just to be clear, I know that you can get like preheated slices of pizza and stuff elsewhere, but this is like, you put your money in and then you get the pizza, I guess. Very strange. Also, there's a million perversions go on in places like Tokyo. But I would rather go to the more like the village, like outside of Tokyo, something outside of Edo. I'd rather go to a small village or something like that. And I imagine the tea must be fantastic. The food must be fantastic. The only problem, and this is weird, and I didn't know this until fairly recently, apparently there are a shit ton of bear attacks in Japan. And I always figured, well, you've got such high population density. How can there be so many bear attacks? There must be no habitat left. But like 80% of Japan is actually still mountainous and forested. It's only a few major metropolitan areas that are actually particularly habited at all. So if you go out into the outlands, if you go into the smaller towns and villages, there's always the possibility that you get run down by a bear, and apparently they have a shit ton of bear attacks. I was looking at that. There was another thing that I covered, I think, a couple of months ago, if I remember correctly, that apparently there's been a huge proliferation of these bear attacks. They wander down from the mountains, which have been conserved, and they try to raid people's trash and stuff, and they get spooked, and then they attack somebody. But I would love to see Tokyo, just for the novelty, biggest city in the world. Okay. I would love to see some of the smaller towns and so forth. That would be fun. Wait, King of Biltong, there is fish biltong? That actually exists? The Japanese dry a lot of fish, let me tell you. Quincy, by the way, loves it. Only if he eats too much of it, he shits sideways. Ah, God, I've got to try fish biltong. Early bird, research neurofeedback for depression and insomnia. I've already done so. I was doing that 15 years ago. Thank you, though. Gleaming guitar. I'm going to play a show in Libtard Town tomorrow. May Alex Stein protect me. I say God bless America at the end of our set, wads. Panties pretty good. Cool. Which Libtard town, though? My goodness. There's a lot of them. Inland surfer. Went to Burlington with the family to see the eclipse. Walking Church Street the day before. Noticed the guy plastering light poles with pro-communism stickers. My nephew and I pulled them off. Fun. Haha. Good on you. I've only done a little bit of stickering. When you're over in the Netherlands, it's like, it must be some sort of weird tradition. Graffiti and stickers are literally goddamn everywhere. If it's along a main route, it appears to be some sort of rite of passage to sticker things. I covered up a couple of Antifa stickers actually there. They had those retarded stickers with the Antifa gnome, and I covered them up with the Sticks Hexen stickers. And at one point, they scraped one of them off and put another one on, so I stickered it over again. It was pretty funny. Jeremy Briggs, I'm Alex Stein's wife's new boyfriend. All right. Yeah, stickering over leftoids is a good thing to do. Panic in Skyfaller. Probably missed my opportunity, but what was the general consensus of Trump on 4chan before it was taken down? Well, back in the day, in the internet hate machine era, right-wingers were the ones that had a problem with 4chan. And they believed it to be a hot den of communism and stuff like that. These days, liberals are the ones that have a problem with it, thinking it a hotbed of far-right mentality, even though it kind of depends on the board. You've got different cultures on different boards. News, for example, tends to be left-leaning. Politically incorrect tends to be, if not right-leaning, at the very least, it's not leftoid. B tends to be just a pile of insanity. Always has been and presumptively always will be. 4chan will be back. Donald Duck was a gangsta. Now look up Dolan Duck if you want to have a cheap laugh. Dolan Duck, probably the best meme other than Pepe. It's funny because memes, they tend to fire up and then they go away and then nothing is ever retained. So, you know, unless you have like a hard copy of it or something like that, you'll never see it again. I've got some Dolan. I like the one where his nephews are asking him to make the fire bigger, so he throws one of them into the fire. Oh, and then there's the other one where he's on drugs, and they're like, Uncle Dolan, we found a turtle. And then he's like, turtloise treatment? And he's all fucked up. Oh no, Uncle Dolan is on drugs. And then he chops the turtle's legs off, and he's shitting on it after killing one of his nephews. Again, I like memes. So yeah, Ronald Reich, he's just gone crazy at this point. I'll have to watch StickyBuddy.com. It appears to be a cat video, relevant to my interests. Yeah, please, Dolan, think of the children. And then he thinks of them and he gets an erection. The idea is he's a pedophile and stuff. Yeah, Uncle Dolan was one of the greatest memes. I think Pepe is still probably the most memorable meme that has ever been created because it proliferated so rapidly and so rampantly that, like, it was literally everywhere. Dolan's up there. I would say Amara Bear is probably up there, along with many others. Putty Putty. But that was more of an interior joke within 4chan more than anything else. Richard Verdow. Sticks, being a pirate, have you ever gone treasure hunting in real life? Yes! When I was a little kid, when I was like 9 or thereabouts, I had a little, my mom, for Christmas, got me a metal detector, actually. And I went out to the green and used it. I actually found quite a bit of stuff. Oh man, I wish I still had all of these things. I found a silver earring with a garnet in it, which I thought was beautiful actually. I found a bunch of coins. I found a golden ring. All sorts of stuff. I mean, the metal detector paid itself off within 10 minutes actually. Yeah, I love metal detecting. That reminds me, once this bullshit is over that I have to go through in New Orleans, I'm hoping to buy one. Because actually it can be profitable. Metal detecting is fairly easy when you think about it. And then you just bring a trowel and the metal detector. Ta-da! And then a bag to hold things in. And preferably some sort of weapon in case you get attacked by an animal. Cygnus. Every story is from childhood. When did it go wrong? No, I have plenty of adult stories as well. Plenty of great experiences, like going to Loose Luna and things like that. Oh man, that nettle tea. I tell ya, I can't wait till the nettles are growing out back. I'm gonna make my own nettle tea. Leon, tell us a NOLA story. Well, New Orleans has some of the best food in the entire goddamn world. If you are vegetarian, however, your options are going to be a little bit more limited. A lot of it is comfort food. As far as the NOLA story, I can't get into the particular legal case that I'm involved in there. I cannot do that. Crusty white bread. Come out to the Arizona desert, Sticks. Great place to treasure hunt. Oh, that would be great. You can find geodes and stuff like that, too. I don't think they really have that here. But you can find quartz deposits. Also, I want to go gold panning. Philip Cockram. What? Vegetarians. Watch Troll 2 if you want to see a hilarious satire of vegetarianism, by the way. Some of you have probably already seen it. Darth Corn Pop. If you go metal detecting in St. Augustine, Florida? No. Folks are still digging up gold doubloons and pieces of 8 along with old Spanish goodies. That sounds interesting. Huh. Yeah, I promised my niece that I would go gold panning with her this year. So I'll probably be doing that in a couple of months. Richard Vernadow, yes, actually I have. I did find a fossil once in a piece of slate. Unfortunately, I no longer possess it. My entire fossil collection, which was substantial by the way, was unfortunately seeded in Texas. Which makes me very sad. I had one hell of a collection. But I'm going to go gold panning. I'm going to go metal detecting. That sounds like fun. No, JJ, my niece is not my only friend. I have plenty of them. Like most of the 1,700 people currently watching on YouTube and the nearly 400 watching on Rumble. Every clanker is my friend. Apparently, I've got some people right here in Rutland that actually watch me. Oh, that reminds me. The other day I was out and I saw this cool dude. He had like a rock shirt and like the leather jacket and stuff like that and the beard. And looked a little bit like me actually, only with shorter hair. And he was like, dude. And I'm like, yeah, man. Well, just sort of a erosive moment, I guess. Anyways, I'm going to go offline. Tomorrow, I probably will not be live streaming. It kind of depends on what level of news there is. Today was a little bit of a slow day, although a fun one, admittedly. Oh, wait, do I have one more? Oh, no, I don't. Okay, so please send no more super chats. Yes, tomorrow I may or may not go live. I may take a day of rest, so to speak. I always make it up on Saturday anyway, you know. Saturday is usually a good news day. It's Sunday that really sucks. Because RCP, my main aggregator, doesn't really update things much on Sunday. So I'm going to see what I can do and probably take a nap because I've been suffering so much insomnia. I'm like, maybe I can just take the entire Carmine. Thank you, Anton. Maybe I can take the whole thing, all 20 tea bags, and stuff them into a cup or something like that, and just chug them down. It's probably possible to do so. I mean, I might, you know. Jick Jack joke. Jeremy jokes about you falling asleep on his stream. Yeah, I got maybe 2 hours of sleep. This happens on a regular basis. Yeah, maybe I need to lay off the caffeine. I'm going to try it. Also, some people have suggested, right before I leave here, some people have suggested I might have Lyme disease. Considering the fact that I have had joint pain and don't apparently have arthritis, I'm beginning to become worried that I actually do. that would be bad. And I guess I'd have to throw in with Justin Bieber. At least he's friends with Marilyn Manson, I suppose. I'm going to do everything that I can to buff my immune system up and so forth. But yeah, I don't get much sleep these days, partially due to stress. I know that that's one of the reasons. So yeah, I'll be back possibly tomorrow with a live stream. I'll do my morning videos, obviously. I may or may not live stream. I've got to do some news docketing and stuff like that. That's about all. Peace out.